Start the Village of Gates Mill Council meeting on September 17th, 2024. Mr. Steinbrink is not with us tonight, and so I'll appreciate a motion in a moment to excuse him from the meeting. But first, let's start with the clerk. Roll call, please, Beth.
Eton.
Here.
Broom.
Here.
Deacon.
Present.
Press.
Present.
Turner. Welsh.
Yes.
Could we have a motion to excuse Councilmember
So moved.
Steinbrink?
Second.
Eton.
No.
Broom.
Yes.
Deacon.
Yes.
Press.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, minutes of the council meeting on August 20th, 24. I thought they were well done and appreciate Beth and others putting those together for us. Were there any corrections or suggestions sent to Beth or anything from council members at this
accept.
point? Pardon me, Ed?
He moved to
Move to
accept.
accept.
Oh, thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion on the minutes?
David.
Roll call?
Oh,
Oh, Sandra, sorry.
there are items on the, in the minutes that I'd like to bring up, as a follow-up, but I'll do it when it's appropriate in the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Eton.
Yes.
Broom.
Yes.
Deacon.
Yes.
Press.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
Item 3 on the agenda, pay ordinance number 1289 in the amount of $733,000.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ed. A second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Scott. Any discussion on the pay ordinance? Hearing none, roll call?
Eton.
Yes.
Broom.
Yes.
Deacon.
Yes.
Press.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Item 4 is several items under the mayor's report. We'll start with the fraud training. We are all required as public officials to take a certain amount of fraud training that is prescribed by the state of Ohio. A good way to do that is to do that now, listen and sign the certification. So, we ready to go?
Yeah, you
Janet?
each have a acknowledgement form in front of you that you'll need to sign, and then I have a sign-in sheet that everyone will need to sign as well.
Yes.
Is this 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
5,
5
6.
minutes.
Oh.
Okay,
Can we do it at the end so the audience doesn't have to sit through it?
It's 6 minutes. It's very quick.
All right,
okay, thank you.
guess you get what you pay for.
Thank you, Mike. If we can just remind you to fill out your certification form and sign-in sheet, leave it up here at the top of the table. We'll complete our files of this, and it's always a good reminder. So thanks for participating with that. Okay, item 4B, appointment of Melissa Fortunato to the Safety Committee. It's my pleasure to recommend and appoint Melissa to our Safety Committee. Melissa is a retired FBI agent with 23 years as a special agent. She's worked in the New York and the Cleveland offices. She and her husband live here in the village. They have 2 daughters that attend Gilmore. In her capacity as a federal law enforcement officer, Melissa conducted public corruption, domestic terrorism, drug traffic investigations, one of which earned her the U.S. Attorney General's Award for Distinguished Service. For 15 years, she was an FBI crisis negotiator. She led the FBI Cleveland Crisis Negotiation Team for 10 years. In this role, she mentored, trained, and deployed a cadre of negotiators to real-world crisis events. She coordinated, led, and trained hundreds of law enforcement officers to work as negotiators in their departments. She's also a 2019 graduate of Scotland Yard's London Metropolitan Police Crisis Negotiation course. Melissa was also certified and operated as an FBI undercover agent. In this role, she deployed domestically and internationally on matters of national security and criminal investigations. I can go on to read, but I think you would agree with me that she's quite qualified to serve on our safety committee. Melissa also has attended the last safety committee a week or 2 ago. And so she knew what she was getting into. We gladly invited her, and she gladly, after the meeting, accepted my invitation to join the safety committee. At this point, I would need council's approval to that appointment.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Lori. Any conversation or discussion on the suggestion? Roll call, please.
Anton,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Turner, Walsh.
Yes.
And Chief, thank you for suggesting and introducing Melissa to us. And please give her a call and let her know she's official. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, item 4C, came to my attention recently by a long-term villager, Peter Griesinger. Though living here for 40 years, I never knew that the village actually had a Caroliner, which is an individual skilled and trained in playing the bells, not necessarily the chimes. This individual has been doing this for close to 35 years, if my memory is right, is now in poor health. And his friends and family and those at St. Christopher, along with others of us, are putting on a somewhat of a concert to honor him in October. Peter Griesinger, who's standing there with a document in his hand, may care to add a comment or two. But we thought it would be appropriate after 35 years of service of playing the village's bells, particularly for 30 minutes to an hour in advance of the 4th of July parade, to honor him for his years of service. He started this when he was about 14, and the math might not add up right, but you get the idea. He's been doing this a very long time. And there are very few Caroliners, let alone call them certified ones, that are in the state and in the country. We really are unique here. When someone says what's unique or different about Gates Mills, we have this here in our backyard, if you will. And I hope that when the invitations come out, that you all join us sometime in the middle of October. Peter, if you can give us the date in a minute, and enjoy something that truly is unique in Gates Mills. So with that, there is a proclamation that you all have in front of you. I won't read it because we use that 6 minutes on fraud training. But you can all see it here, and it's very complimentary of all the work that Dave Osborne has done for the village. Peter, can I ask you just for a minute or two? We got a really full agenda, just to add anything that I haven't added.
No, you've covered it all. Thank you very much for your support and for your signing the proclamation and being part of that effort. David is a worthy Gates Mills citizen. He's lived on and off again in Gates Mills. His mother was a nursery school teacher at the church, and for 30 years and a secretary there. So he's really been a great Gates Mills resident. I saw him on the 4th of July, this last parade, went up to the Belfry to see him hammering along, and it was clear he was not well. And I said, "What's up?" And he said, "He's sick." I said, "Okay, it's time for us to honor your services." So we're doing that October 12th at 11 in the morning. It's a Saturday morning for an hour. And we have invited, on David's recommendation, Carolin Concert, who is he's a clinic researcher, a big order of biomedical researcher, but he also is a Caroliner, apparently an expert one. So he's coming to play a concert with Becky Everett, who is the church Caroliner. So it's a little half-hour, 45-minute show, and that will be it. Just give David a little something for boosting him through his health issues and appreciation of his long service to the village.
There's also a wonderful, thank you, Peter. There's also a wonderful history of the bells and the chimes, I should say, or the bells.
Well,
And
yeah, they are the 8 bells were chimes, but they're the first Carolin quality bells, I think, in the country in 1927. And then we got the full set of 15 more bells for a 2-octave bell set in 1964. And so what you're really alluding to is it's a terrific instrument that is sitting in this village. It's one of 4 in Northeast Ohio, one of 10 in Ohio. So it's a rare thing to have, and David's been the guy to play it, just wonderfully.
tell him we hope to see him on the 10th, 12th. I hope his health is good and he can be there to enjoy that. It's wonderful that you guys have put this together.
Let me also say my involvement is because my father, Frank Griesinger, was the village Caroliner in the 50s and the 60s, so I should add that. So I've always known David when he was much smaller. I'm younger than him. He had Straw Hat Theater. He's the director of the musicals there,
Ah.
even as a kid. So he's been around anyhow. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is the Encore Report. I promised you at the last meeting that we'd have a report for you on Encore. I met with the board chairman and the outgoing board chairman a few weeks ago. They provided a written report. Don't need to go through that today. But they were happy with the additional attention that they brought to the Encore group. They're happy with the additional extension beyond being identified as a Gilmore thing, that it really was a well-recognized with the city and the municipality of Gates Mills put behind it. They were pleased with the additional attendance. The only downside was on the day of the last concert. As we remember, we had 390 people that signed up through tickets to attend, and it had to be put indoors in the building. And so only a fraction of that were able to hear the last concert. They will be back for the next 2 years, and we will be asked again, maybe at the next meeting, to support them both financially as well as enthusiastically. So I'll ask you just to read the report and to send any questions my way. But it worked out very well. Item E, the zoning workshop. We had that just last week. I'm not going to summarize the details of that because it is rather intricate. I'm going to leave that chore up to the clerk, who does a wonderful job, Beth, with the minutes, or Janet, whoever was here taking minutes. And overall, though, I think it was a great workshop. I had 2 or 3 of you compliment each other and a gathering here in terms of the information that was learned and shared, and the collegiality and such that we all exercised in having different points of view. So we'll have those minutes for you before the next meeting, and we'll talk about scheduling another workshop if need be to go through a few of the open items, as well as a workshop to talk about any changes to zoning and final approval by citizens as opposed to by council. That's still on the docket. Okay, the road program, I promised you that we would have a report to you at the end of September's meeting on the road program. You'll recall, and you have a document in front of you, which should look like this. David, I see yours. That's great. Sandra? Excellent. Okay, so we start the year every year with a goal of about $1 million on our roads. Go back 3 or 4 years, we were spending $500,000 to $600,000 a year on roads. Our roads were more falling apart than were being maintained. We decided we would do a study, which we did. It was a 6 years. It was a study that said over the next 6 years, you need to spend $6 to $7 million, and we decided that's too big of an apple for 1 year. So we'll spread that out over 6 or 7 years and take care of the worst roads first, and when we fix them, keep them in good shape, and then tackle the next set of roads. That costs us about $1 million a year in what we would call the road program. Most of those are our roads that we have full responsibility for. Some of those are county roads where at times they share in the cost, and at times they share in the reimbursement of some of the materials. A few are state roads. We only have 3 state roads, and we are totally dependent on when the state decides to do those roads. So our degree of participation is somewhat schedulable, but not completely. Going into the year, we had planned on doing Hill Creek and Andrews. You remember earlier in the year, we were approached by Jaga County to do the 4.5 miles of road along County Line Road from the Willoughby Hills border to the Hunting Valley border. That was not something that we had on our radar because in the past, our prior overtures that had being funded for that were not accepted. But Jaga County had the sway and had the money and did most of the engineering, and also was able to tie in Chester Township. So we pushed, as we talked about, Hill Creek and Andrews off for a year, and said we'll come back perhaps in the fall and see if we can get those in. As things turn out, the road program is going to cost us about $1,135,000 this year. That does include the service lot, the service department lot in the back that we pushed off from a year before that. We have had some unexpected or unbudgeted expenditures on roads. The Mayfield Road, right up, by West Hill had water problems 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago. Those required repair. Our cost of that's $30,000. Old Mill had water problems just over Labor Day weekend. There was a seepage for a number of weeks. Calls to the water department were relatively fruitless. Eventually, they came out, agreed that there was a water leak, and lo and behold, it burst open the next morning.
Oh.
That was closed for a while. It's being fixed now. The repairs of just the road and the sidewalks that have all, and the sidewalks, the curbs and so on, which have been undermined, is about $207,000. That's not something we had planned on. It does need to get done. We were able to talk to the county about that, and through the great relationships that we have established, my predecessors frankly have established, Chris Courtney and his firm, Dave Biggert, others, the county was amenable to listening to our request for emergency funding for that. And I spoke with Chris Ronayne about a week ago, and he said, subject to county council's approval on the 23rd, they will fund $100,000 of that $200,000 under a emergency bill and provision that they have. So we'll have to spend the money and then apply for reimbursement, as is the case, but half of that cost will be paid for. Riverview, we had planned for drainage problems at Riverview. We had drainage problems and they've been fixed. That was planned and known. Chagrin River at Mayfield, that's another $19,000. That's the bottom of the hill. Those are the final settle-ups of all the work that was done probably close to 2 or 3 years ago, Chris, with the intersection and the different lanes and so on. That's our final tail on the bill. A little bit at Berkshire and Epping, and then Sam Center, we had drainage issues from Gilmore to the Circle. Those were fixed earlier this year by, I think, Agresta for $36,000 or something of that magnitude. So overall, what we have is we're projecting that we will spend $1,503,000 this year compared to our budget of $1,063,000. That's roughly $440,000 more. That excludes Hill Creek and Andrews, and if we were to add that in, that would put our road costs at close to $2,100,000 this year. I drove Hill Creek and Andrews the other day. I'm not an engineer, but there are some areas there that are kind of rough. But in my view, I would like to maintain deferring those until next year and do those the first thing next year like we did this year, get an early start in the spring. But this is something that you all had raised with me earlier, and I said we would bring back the math, the calculations, and have any discussion that you care to have on this. So let me open it up to comments from council.
Steve, I thought I saw the guys out on Brigham this morning. That culvert repair?
No, curb repair.
Curb repair.
Trying to do some things squared away before.
I ask a question. So when will we do Hill Creek and Andrews?
We will do Hill Creek and Andrews as soon as the snow melts in April.
Okay.
Chris, right?
Request authorization to bid in February, get it out to bid in April, award in March, and then be able to construct April, May. We'll want it to be, it has to be warm enough.
Yep.
For the asphalt.
We looked at what we had otherwise planned for next year, and those would be the biggest items, and those have been delayed a year. So those get first dibs. Right, Chris? We have nothing else huge planned like that.
Multi-point maintenance, county road maintenance, county road repair.
Okay, thank you.
That would advise the program over.
Is there any news on Hill Creek? Are they gonna patch all those holes and everything attached to Andrews?
We'll do some patching and then we'll probably have to do some throughout the winter, but yeah, we'll take care of some.
Okay.
Lori?
fully paving the spring.
It's about a mile and a half, isn't it? West Hill all the way up to Andrews and then a mile and a half back. So that's quite a long road. Lori, you had a question?
Just a comment, county line looks great, by the way, it really does. And it sounds like a reasonable plan, especially if there's nothing large planned for next year, that would seem to be the most prudent to defer till April.
David?
We have $8.5 million in the general fund, nearly, close to. And we're going to spend this money next year anyway.
Mhm.
If we thought doing these roads was the right thing to do this year, I think that's what we should do. I mean, I don't see any advantage in delaying what was already planned.
Well, the advantage is that that will put us for the year in a large deficit. And frankly, I like to run the village as best we can on what I call a balanced budget approach. And I'd rather wait 6 months and end the year with a balanced budget or a small surplus than $500,000 in the hole and explain people for the next 5 years why we ran a deficit in 2024. We can wait 6 months. The roads are frankly in okay condition. They may not technically be as good as we want them to be, but they're in fair shape. That's we have a different view on that. Your view is understandable, sure.
I get, Steve, I had 2 points. One, I wanted to add something, and that is the sidewalk between the school and the library. We didn't get the grant from the state. We only had the 1/2 the ARPA money. We still need 150,000. I know we said we would talk about it, but if we're talking about capital improvements, I'd like to see that get discussed or included.
That's an excellent point. We have had estimates on that. As you know, we have some of the money funded through ARPA. We have to, by the end of 24, if we haven't appropriated the funds to do that, we need to do that by the end of 24. So we have a few months left on that. Chris, what would it take to update that estimate of the sidewalk? A week or two? Okay, would it be okay with you if we do that and report that at the next meeting, what the cost is? We've been thinking it's 150, but again, the cost of steel and labor and not in total, well, not in our share. Yeah. Yeah, okay, I just about choked. Okay, thank you.
That would be good. That would be good. Thank you. And the second point, just to David's point, I mean, the only reason I would see to move forward now with any contract would be if for some reason, like we ran into last winter, a contractor had some extra time, got a better bid. I mean, that would be the only reason I would see doing something with the road program this year rather than next year.
Okay.
If there's a commitment to do it next year and award it next year, just from a quality of construction standpoint, I think we stand a better chance of getting a higher quality installation in May versus trying to do it in October. October, we're gonna start to probably run into rain, could have some cold weather, might have some snow. Once we take the asphalt surface off, we're gonna have to do some pulled up repairs. If things go well, it would probably be okay. If we run into any sort of a problem, we may end up with our back against the wall. And if we can avoid that, I think that's probably the more prudent course.
Any other comments on the road program? Ed?
Will Mayfield schools pick up any of this?
No. You mean the road, for the roads?
Yeah, around the school.
For the roads, or the walkway?
I
Sidewalk.
mean, they're raising all the rates and everything, and they can pay for it.
Okay, for the roads, which is what we're covering, no.
Sidewalks,
For the sidewalks and the signs, we can ask them.
okay.
Yeah, good point. Okay, anything else on the road program? Okay, we're gonna go ahead at this point. There's always something you can bring up at the next meeting and we can provide more information. We'll provide updates on the cost to finish the sidewalk between the school and downtown at the next meeting. The next item is the financial report.
No clerk's report. Gwen.
Sorry.
That's
excuse
all
me.
right.
So a clerk's report.
No clerk's report.
Okay. The financial report has been prepared and posted online prior to the meeting. We continue to be in a good financial position. As the report says, our revenues have been up in most categories. Interest income is up, real estate tax revenue is up, personal income tax should be up. And we will have some additional expenses in September because the Census Gatso invoice wasn't received on time and verified in time for payment in August. So we look a little bit flush in August on traffic cameras. It'll drop back down in September when we report this in October. Most of our expenses are pretty much in line. The biggest items that we don't know about, the biggest items that we talked about are the road programs. We also have a few expected overages in some of the storm cleanup. Tom will give you an update on our progress with applying to the FEMA system for some level of reimbursement. That'll take a while, but we'll give you an update on that. There are a lot of guardrails that got beat up on Chagrin River Road up by Riverview and Hillside and that area that will need to be repaired, hopefully before the end of the year, depending on cost and timing and so on. So we're not out of it completely, and there will be some financial costs, but the majority of them should be in the August and September numbers. Okay, any financial questions, send them to Janet or me. Police Department report, Chief Minicello, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Everybody should have received a copy of my report. Be happy to respond to any questions you might have. You know, and just real quickly, I just thought I would mention because I mentioned to Councilwoman Deacon about last night, about 6 p.m. we had the UAS team or the drone team out on County Line at Old Mill Road. Report came in that they saw somebody by the guardrail looking over, thought that you know, maybe he was in distress. So we had the unit come out. We have a member who just so happened to be working last night. So that expedited, you know, setup and everything. But you know, the area checked clear, and there's no evidence to support that anything had transpired. Nobody's reported missing or anything like that. So we just think it was somebody who was, you know, walking by in the area, maybe taking a break or something like that. Nobody was, again, there's no evidence to support anything at that point. So, but we were out there for about 2 hours last night.
A quick question,
Yes, sir.
Chief. You were going to start issuing citations for people on Mayfield Road who drove at 58 miles an hour or more, whereas prior to that it was 60 or more. Did you do that? Have you started issuing citations at 58 plus?
I'll answer that. After the last meeting, we discussed that internally, and we have decided that we're not going to provide that information publicly. It's of no use to us. We've checked this with the law director and the prosecutor to essentially tell people there's a posted speed of X, but we're really going to only go to Y. So we're not going to indicate going forward if we've changed the speed or to what level or to what number or up or down. That's a matter that we'll handle it as part of the administration. If a council person has the question, I'm happy to answer that one-on-one with that person, but we're not going to publicly discuss that. It does no good but to give someone the ability to speed 13 or 14 miles an hour and then claim that they were told that they'd be okay at 57 or 56.
I'm glad you changed that because that was the way we started doing it. We told them what the limit was and we told them we wouldn't fine them down to the limit, you know, so that's a good move.
Thank you.
Any consideration of adding a drone to our police toolbox?
Well, they're readily available to us. You know, that's part of our annual dues for, you know, the Valley Enforcement Group that we're part of. We have a officer on the unit. Response time's been great. They certainly have more than we could ever have down here. I got a firsthand look up close and personal last night. They have 6 different drones, operators. They're very well trained, great equipment. So we wouldn't have a need for that.
I think it's 6 drones. It's 6 drones.
No, they have 6.
Oh, I was
One was up last night, but you know, there's larger ones. One of the smaller ones was trying to get down and But, yeah, it's quite impressive. We'll have it down here sometime. I mean,
One of the advantages of the, what is it called? The VEG?
Valley Enforcement Group. yes.
Valley Enforcement Group, which is 12,
About 16.
16, police departments, in this area that, can't necessarily afford or staff these specialty skills by each one, so it's done as a group. So SWOT analysis, bomb threats, drone coverage, it's a subset, if you will. We have officers that participate in that Valley Enforcement Group on certain of those skills. Okay, thank you. Any other
Thank you.
comments for the police chief? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Dave?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. You should have received a brief copy of my monthly report. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. If there are none, yes.
Dave, I've got one. It's not on your report, but I've received a couple calls
Mhm.
This week that apparently there's another property owner up on Mayfield with a non-compliant sign.
Yes,
So we now have two people with
Yes.
non-compliant signs.
correct. The
Update.
one I believe went up sometime yesterday, late yesterday or evening. They will be receiving a violation notice. Yep, that actually should be going up today.
You know, Dave, I'm going to follow up on that.
Mhm.
We've heard that for months. We've got several residents now who are in violation of our various ordinances. They've been cited. I understand it's gone to the prosecutor's office. And I'm tired of getting comments from residents and just driving around myself and seeing no change, no adjustment to these violations. And I don't know, I don't.
Are we
indicate-
talking signs or
We're
what?
talking signs, we're talking building.
Okay.
You know, and I don't want to in public necessarily identify particular properties, but I'm not happy sitting here listening.
The majority of political signs we have, other than those two, are compliant. They're within the size limit.
I'm talking about ones that are not compliant.
So what
Sure
we've
about
done
that.
is we notify the people immediately. We send them a certified or a registered letter. There's one that went out today at 4:55 to that other individual, put up the last sign. They have, I believe, a 15-day period in which they can object to our ordinance or to our issuance of that. After that, I think it's 15 or 20 days. I don't know the number of.
Well, the 20 days, because they have
20
a
days.
20-day period, they have the right to appeal my decision. So we got to wait 20 days
We've
before we.
dealt with the
file.
prosecutor, our prosecutor, on each of these. They know what day in which they're due. The one that's near St. Francis has a court date now set. Despite the fact that we've been there 2 or 3 times, asked them to remove them, suggested that they put up 10 small signs rather than one big sign. They decided that they are going to fight it through the court process. We can't do anything further until the court hearing. There is a court date set. I don't know, we can find out what date that is. But that's the legal process that we have to follow.
And would the fines go back then to the, to when, Todd? How far back? would they
Daily
go?
basis.
What?
It's on a daily basis
Back to when they
from
were
the
first
date of
cited?
citation.
Is it like a baseball arbitration where the judge has to either back the village or the property owner? Or can he make up a different remedy if he wants?
The judge needs to follow the ordinance. However, a property owner could challenge the constitutionality of our ordinance. I believe that our ordinance is constitutional. It provides ample opportunity for people to express their First Amendment rights with respect to candidates, issues, or any other message that they want to put out there, whether it's commercial, non-commercial, ideological, political, whatever.
Do we have a large quantity of these or just a few?
The two are the ones that are non-compliant. Sandra, it'd be very helpful to have known what signs you feel are not in compliance, because I'm aware of the majority of political ones and they're compliant.
No, that's fine. I'm
Yeah.
aware of 2 as well. One's brand new, the other's older. We also have a home that's, been given deadlines for.
The 30th is the deadline we're waiting for. I think we've said that.
Yeah.
September 30th is when the permit
They've
expires.
engaged counsel. We've had their counsel deal with our counsel.
Right.
So all these matters are being pursued. We can't just, though,
Mhm.
arbitrarily go in and make changes. Just to be honest here, we've had a few complaints too with people stealing other people's signs. And they've been caught on ring, and that's going to be a problem. People are allowed to express their political views according to the rules that we have. And respectfully, stay on your own property, and don't take away somebody else's rights to express their views. We had that call the other night. Here we are in the middle of the night, the police getting a phone call, somebody appears on ring, people chasing people down in the middle of the night and nothing more than stealing political signs.
Yeah.
So, let's all be grown-ups here.
The other thing I would say, Sandra, you have to understand, it's not just me doing it as the building official. There's a team. There's me as the building official, the first level, in conjunction with Todd, our law director, and Mike Cicero, telling me what we can and what we can't do.
This
So
seems-
I understand if you're unhappy about a time frame,
Yeah, the
but regardless of them,
frame is the biggest problem.
but regardless of them being in violation or not, they still have legal rights that we are obligated to uphold.
How do the property
Understood.
owners know what the rules are and aren't?
Because when I send them a violation, by law, I have to say what section of our code they're in violation of, and I send them a full copy of that section.
And they
So
know
today's
that before they-
violation went out.
Basically, they have to violate first before they find out what the rules are.
Well, no, I mean, hopefully people may say, I want to put a sign. Does the village have something that says what I can or can't do? Most people probably don't do that. Or call my office. I've had people call and say, hey, do we have a sign ordinance?
These
Yes, we
property
do.
owners are well aware of what our sign ordinance says, because this is every 2 to 4 years.
Yes. The ones that we're currently,
This seems to come up every election. Feel very
Absolutely.
Strongly. Are there
Absolutely.
5, 15, 50?
yeah. Well, again, we have two of the biggest ones that are currently under violation.
Oh, just 2? Oh,
So,
okay.
so
I'm not saying that's, the rest of the political signs are all compliant with the village ordinance.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things I have noticed driving around on the east side and even going further east is the signs seem bigger
Mm.
than they have been in the past. It used to be that, I don't know, they were about that. Now there's.
And those are the
large
compliant
ones.
ones. Those are typically compliant, under 6 square feet.
So I just wondered, given that larger signs are being handed out, does it make sense to have a nice article in the pink sheet that says, hey, it's election time? Here's what the requirements are. Here's what you need to do,
I-
so that at least, because
I have done that.
you have, you have, okay. And it recently, Dave, or,
Typically every year
okay,
before.
so it's in there. Okay.
We can do it again though, and we can,
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's helpful. I missed that, but that's really helpful.
And Todd, from the time that you're cited to the time that, again, you have a court hearing, it's permissible to keep the sign up. It's not, I violated, or you violated the ordinance,
have-
take it down, bring it to court.
I would have to file a complaint in common pleas court to get an injunction to stop it. It's very costly, number one. Judges don't like to handle those types of things. And so the best route to go is criminally with a misdemeanor complaint in municipal court.
Okay, all right.
Could we eliminate all signs if we wanted to?
No.
Yeah,
So
you
there's
can't anymore.
probably some jurisdiction much more powerful than we are has considered this issue and decided what's appropriate and what's not.
Well, I've tried 2 or 3 of these in my career in federal court.
Mm.
I've lost them because they were too stringent. I've written these sign regulations for 40 years, and I believe the one we have is constitutional.
And the prosecutor says the same thing. There's only 2 things we can restrict or regulate: the size, which ours is no larger than 6 square feet, and the location has to be outside the right of way. Those are the only 2 things that we can
Oh, I
regulate.
thought
We
we also
cannot
restrict-
regulate time. either.
Right.
So
Oh,
they
I
can
thought
be
we
up
had-
No,
An early day and a late day.
365 days a year forever, except for you can have regulations with respect to their maintenance, so that if they're tattered, they look terrible, then they can be forced to be taken.
So we don't have a rule about taking them down within so many days of the election?
Cannot.
Okay.
unless it's something like a garage sale, which is an event.
okay,
Then
not
if someone puts up puts up, has a garage sale and puts up a sign, they have to have it removed within, I
And
think, 7
contractor
days.
signs.
Thank you.
Put time on it, so
So,
not political signs.
so Todd, due process then requires, that's the constitutional piece of it, that we have this process in place that's the notice, the 20 days, et cetera, et cetera.
Right,
So,
for
so
criminal.
that it is what it is and that needs to be in that way in order to meet the due process requirements. So there's really no opportunity to make any changes.
Not any practical opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you.
But Dave is very diligent and his people, if there are signs in the right of way, they're taken. You bring them back here and if.
We bring them back here. If it's got a number, I try and contact them just to advise them, hey, just so you know, here's an ordinance we have. I have them here. If you want to come pick them up, we hold them for a month or so or whatever. If nobody comes, we discard them.
Yeah, let me be clear, I'm not, I am directing it at you, but I'm not, I'm
understand.
more concerned about the prosecution process than I am
understand.
about you handling this.
I
It's
understand.
not against you.
I could just, one thing regarding, we had some stolen political signs, for sure.
I guess that would conclude my report.
I was just gonna, I was just gonna say, obviously, we've had some reports, several reports of stolen political signs, and there's no doubt in my mind that the residents would want to file criminal charges against the violator or violators if we could find out who they are. Trespassing, theft, obviously with something like this, we would, have a conversation with the prosecutor about, but, the victims here have been pretty adamant about, their property and people coming on their property, so.
Okay, thank you for those comments. And Tom Majeski Fire Department, including a quick update on how busy they were in August and the status of our FEMA application. Tom?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. You should have a copy of my written report. At the end of the report, you'll see special thanks to the Gates Mills Fire Department members for responding to the highest number of incidents, 63 in a single month in the fire department's history. The previous record was 42 incidents in August of 2023. So unfortunately, this seems to be a regular event. To update, our damage assessments went to the county. The county tabulated them along with other cities and villages, and that is now in the hands of the state EMA. It goes from the state EMA to the federal EMA, and it can take months, sometimes like a year and a half before you actually see any funds if we're entitled to get the funds. So we applied for it. If we get the funds at some point in the future, consider it kind of like gravy. The other thing that I would like to update council on is our 1996 fire engine. We sent out for a minor refurbishment. It's almost complete. They're waiting for some more parts that were back ordered. It passed all the required tests, and we spent about $10,000 for the minor refurb.
Well, that's great. Yeah.
So, and that concludes my report. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, let's get a new topic, tree canopy. David Anton, Sandra Turner, Mitch Bass. I see Lucy Chamberlain in the background there. Don't know if there's anybody else from the tree committee, but Mitch, we'll turn it over to you. You're the chair of the tree canopy committee. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Mayor.
Nobody
Thank
here
you.
from the Land Conservancy.
Hmm?
Nobody here from the Land Conservancy in the
Well,
audience.
Sandra is.
In the audience.
No, Celeste is here.
Celeste is here. Sorry, I did see it. She's got that
Mitch
hat on.
is.
Okay. Good to see you.
I thought I'd provide the presentation. Hopefully you've all received it. I know David and Sandra have previously made some updates on the progress we've been making. And so here to kind of bring that all together and ask for a few things. So goals and mission, just to remind everyone to research practices, protecting, maintaining the healthy trees. All these goals and missions came out of the long range planning program. Can't remember the exact, what was it? Comprehensive plan. Develop recommendations to initiate pilot projects within the village, advise regarding sources of federal, state, local resources and grant funding, oversee initiatives within the tree canopy, obviously approved by and funded by council, and report periodically back on these initiatives. So what we've done so far, we've had 6 official committee meetings with, I would say, most in attendance. We've met with ODNR, specifically the Division of Forestry. The head forester for Cuyahoga County and this region, his name's John Keene. Specifically within Gates Mills, he's traveled down here, I'd say probably 5 or 6 times at least. We also took the stance that we felt was important to develop key partnerships. And so Chagrin River Watershed Partners, we had a meeting here on site with their team. We also have been working diligently on educating the whole group. And so we went out to the Working Woods visit site at Holden Arboretum and spent an evening out there with a team from Holden Arboretum, including ODNR. We've had several meetings now with the Metro Parks Director of Natural Resources, Jennifer Griesner. And then just last week, we were up at University School. They kicked off a 67-acre, I guess, a pilot project. And Jennifer came out on behalf of the Metro Parks to take a look at that as well, and provided some very insightful information to University School and us. And there was a contractor out there, and we walked the woods and actually saw what in fact they were taking care of out there, because they have a large maple syrup production, and they've had a significant loss of production out of their maple trees. So they were advised to go after the invasives, which are taking over those woods. And then we've gone on several driving tours through the village to specific site visits. So different folks within the Tree Canopy Committee can understand from different divisions with Metro Parks, Chagrin River Watershed Partners, and ODNR what exactly we're seeing, what is actually on the road, and that all the green necessarily isn't good, and starting to point and put our hands on things to identify it. So as I mentioned before, we thought it was short-term and long-term strategically important to create collaborations with some of the most well-respected entities within Cuyahoga County and frankly, Northeast Ohio. And so again, we have the full support of Holden Arboretum, Cleveland Metro Parks. There's been one meeting with Cuyahoga County Planning Commission and Ohio Department of Natural Resources, who is really supportive of what we want to do, because they want to use Gates Mills as really I hate to say a test site, but as what everyone else in the community should be doing as a lead example. Words kind of escaping me right now. So I get to the pilot project, which I know has been discussed briefly. And so we chose 4 locations with these collaboration visits and discussions with different individuals within the community. And they were based off of creating a large impact to the public viewscape, which was an important outcome from the long-term strategic plan, access to village residents, and we also felt it was important to create a demonstration of collaboration with the village, Gates Mills Land Conservancy, Metro Parks, to really show that we're serious about this and that something needs to be done. So we chose, we also thought it was important to create different areas within the village so-called the neighborhoods. So folks that are up on Gates Mills Boulevard don't necessarily always travel down through the village north of Mayfield. So we tried to have an area that we felt everyone would see and recognize some benefits. So we chose Feller Field, which is 25 acres, the Village Arboretum, obviously right in the heart of the village, the Gates Mills Land Conservancy property, which is just past the Garden Club on the west side, northwest side of the Garden Club, and then a stretch of land which is identified here with Gates Mills and Cleveland Metro Parks heading north of Mayfield to Sherman Road on the west side. So if you, on the next page, you'll see the outlined scope of Feller Field. Outlined, it's kind of hard to see because it's tight in there, is which would not be targeted, would obviously be the baseball diamond and where the existing gas well is. And then several of the target species within there are privet, vine, buckthorn, and multiflower rose, which is prevalent simply throughout the whole village. Village Arboretum, obviously all in our backyard. There's very dense amount of Japanese knotweed. There's vines, privet, and tree of heaven, which seems to be popping up, in the news quite frequently. So, and then moving further north to the west side by the Garden Club, that's a very noticeable, heavy invasive area with specifically porcelain berry. There's Japanese knotweed and honeysuckle and tree of heaven as well. And then heading north, you can see the Cleveland Metro Parks parcel is delineated, and then Gates Mills's parcel heads north to Sherman. There's heavy vines, privet, buckthorn, Japanese knotweed, tree of heaven. That area is 12 acres, and you can see it's about 150 feet in from the road towards the river. And depending if you have color or not, you can actually see how damaging all the invasives have taken over that area, more specifically in the Metro Park parcel, but it certainly flows over into the Gates Mills. And I think there's been a lot of discussions that we've seen sort of online and offline with the Metro Parks that if we decide to fund and move forward with this project, there will be further collaboration within the village to spend some of their own resources and tack on even what we're doing on top of some of these areas, which we felt was very encouraging. So now to sort of the fun part of the presentation, the commitment we're looking for from the Village of Gates Mills is these invasives have to be tackled for a minimum 3 years. So the first year is typically just trying to get access into these properties, clearing the properties as best we can. But this isn't, there can be gray area with this. You come across stuff you weren't planning on seeing. So we need a little bit of flexibility, but the goal is to identify 3 years solid commitment of treatment and really a long-term commitment in the budget of some sort to continue to maintain the invasive species that are coming here. Especially as we know with the lantern flies are big with the tree of heaven. We have a large amount of tree of heaven within the village. So this is just going to continue to be a problem down the line if we don't continue to address it outside of the pilot project. So we put together a financial commitment snapshot. You can see the acres. The descending cost is simply like most projects. The first year is going to be the worst, and the second year you're going to be able to cover more acreage or spend less per acre, however you want to sort of kind of do that. There's also there's potential to be some administrative fees, or we've talked about some outside consultant foresters that can give us broader assessments, as well as down the line help us with the federal and state funding that's out there. So we think it's important to get an outside service forester involved early in the project so that they understand where and what we're doing and where we're trying to go. The other thing that came up with several of the walk around, especially down by the river area, is as you're killing invasives, it's important to reforest, replant, and get things back into the ground once the invasives are cleared to help stabilize the soils and help revegetate the area quicker. Otherwise, the invasives obviously just come back. So that's the reason for the range target in here. Obviously, our goal is to come under budget. But there's, cost of revegetation, replanting, and habitat establishment, which kind of goes into some other, I know, committees you're working to establish. So that's where some of those numbers came from. And then moving forward from a long-term strategy with resident education, we know it's going to be a hot topic within the village. Residents are, very passionate about trees and nature and the viewscape here, and everyone thinks green's good. So we know it's going to take a big educational push to show people that areas that are now browned out that used to be beautiful and green, what's going on. And so we know there's going to need to be some on-site communications during the pilot project. Mayor, I know you were away this summer and saw this actually taking place, and we've had some other feedback, and we think that would be important, signage, of course, within the ordinance realm of the village, but showing people what we're doing. And so concerned residents aren't necessarily calling or wondering, are we clearing areas for new developments, things like that. Ongoing would be just the basic communication strategies, and we think we probably need to enhance those even a little bit through the pink sheet, village website, Gates Mills Land Conservancy, communication, and the Gates Mills Connect. The Metro Parks has offered many different in-kind sort of initial relationship offerings, one of which would be workshops with the Metro Parks and their active foresters. They now have a forester managing the invasives that they brought on board within the last 12 months. And organizing volunteer support. ODNR is willing to make a big push with us, and that there's, as we've learned as a committee, a lot of different resources. There's camps and trainings and all different sorts of things, because I personally, as well as other folks within the Canopy Committee, are getting emails from residents that just simply want to volunteer time and jump out there and start cutting stuff and helping. So we know there will be an outpouring here, and we just want to make sure it's managed correctly and everyone's educated moving forward. So quick next steps from September to October, or moving forward from here, we're looking to get a council approval to proceed and complete and distribute an RFP, qualify vendors who the Metro Parks is providing. They have several projects taking place on their properties with different invasive control measures, and so they're providing us all the RFP and qualification of vendors and sort of these nice packets to help us go out to that process. So we think we can get that expedited pretty quickly. And obviously vendor selection, and then ODNR is even willing to put in place a memorandum of understanding for inspection deliverables from the vendors on behalf of the Village of Gates Mills as a government entity to make sure the work that we're setting out to accomplish is actually being accomplished. And then we're looking at a November, December through March vendor selection and approval from council, work to be performed. And we picked the winter months as the initial strategy so that everyone in the village didn't say, oh my goodness, why is all this stuff dying? It's also a good time to do the work. Typically vendors will come in a little less, looking for more work over the winter, and come springtime, you can get a really quick rejuvenation of all these trees and all these other species that are being pulled back by the invasives. One piece I just wanted to make sure that I got across was we obviously still need to get Gates Mills Land Conservancy board approval for their parcel land, as well as Cleveland Metro Parks board of approval. Both entities have been very supportive of what we're doing, but there are some paperwork and strategies we have to get in place to do work on both of their lands compliantly. And then 2025, based on the early pilot results, we're going to continue working on a long-term strategy and vision for the Gates Mills tree canopy through the committee, enhance the collaboration relationships, and truly understand how we move forward with a lot of these federal, state, and local fundings, which there's a tremendous amount of financial resources out there. and help develop other fundraising opportunities and really what it could look like long-term for the village. So that's what we've done. Any specific questions, or I know it's kind of long.
Congratulations on a very thorough report. How many locations are you looking to fund here to do the project?
4 initially, which were Feller Field, the Arboretum, the Gates Mills Land Conservancy parcel, and then further north, it's a combined parcel of Cleveland Metro Parks with.
So that's
Gates
4?
Mills. Yes, 4.
Okay. And then what will it be total projects?
We don't know exactly. Out of the last meeting, the best way to establish the plan is figure out where the worst areas are versus target single species. So we looked at, again, what would create the largest impact from a viewscape to start. And then as we build the plan out, we're kind of coming over a lot of data, such as the Cuyahoga County put together tree canopy loss between, was it 2011 and 17?
Correct.
Right. And so we have data down to the parcel level of every single person within the village, what their canopy loss was on their specific parcel of land.
Okay.
And it's going to take a lot of on the ground effort,
Oh, definitely.
right, walking these parcels, doing drive-bys and establishing that long-term commitment on where do we go next? Because when we go into an area, it has to be fully eradicated and abutting parcels if there's.
So you're starting out with 4 then?
We're starting out with 4 and
Okay.
hoping to expand.
An important part of this is the education to our residents on what we're doing. While the Metro Parks and the Conservancy and the village have a substantial amount of land in the village, we are not the biggest landowners. Biggest landowners are individuals. And so both aggressively to show what we're trying to do, these high impact areas, the Arboretum, Feller Field, River Road, et cetera, people will start to see that. They'll ask the questions. We'll put up signs that says invasive control and process or something like that. Call the village hall for more information or whomever. It's to start to educate them that this is not just a matter of trimming a few trees and planting a few seedlings, that this is something that we're going to be doing for years. And this is a good start. Lori, you had a question?
Just excellent presentation, really thorough, very well done, well thought out. And I just have one question about, given that you haven't included replanting, habitat establishment, just generally, could you speak to what your plan would be and how that would work for that aspect of the overall project?
Sure. I can't speak specifically to dollar figures. And that's why I sort of established in here some flexibility, because if we get into a parcel and it takes half the time or there's half the amount, but we have budgeted dollars, but then we get in down towards a river area and it makes sense to put some plantings in there to be able to have some flexibility to move those dollars into the affected areas. So to answer your question specifically, it's hard until we really get in there and start seeing exactly what's needed. And I mean, some of these areas you just have to clear pathways just to get in to see what's all in there because it's so covered and carpeted. But these aren't hugely expensive. I mean, you can get hundreds and hundreds of tree saplings just to get native seeds back into the village that don't necessarily take, but provide seed banking in the forest that might take 5-6 years, or the deer might eat them and they might not come back for 10 years. So it's really is a long-term strategy. I think you'll see a little more of that as we plan out further than this four pilot project that we're looking to do. But it's the planting side is an undertaking because it can get big, but it's about really just building the seed bank back up, not necessarily just getting trees that we think of, planted on the viewscape going. So.
It sounds like sensitive areas might need to be replanted immediate, but other areas that could wait.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's going to be Feller Field, Gates Mills Garden Club. What were the other two?
Feller Field, the Village Arboretum, a property north of the Garden Club. before Mayfield on the west side, and then a parcel 150 feet in, starting from Mayfield Road to Sherman Road on the west side.
Thank you.
It's not the garden club.
Yeah, it's not the garden.
Redoing their trees.
Yeah, it's not the garden club.
Could have serious consequences.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work.
So Mitch,
The slide, that page of your slides, is a
Got
good
it.
one to get to.
Yep.
Yeah, just put a sticky note on that.
Good job, Mitch.
I saw it.
Thank you.
so Mitch, thank you for this. The Metro Parks, they're looking to make a contribution then, at least to some of the effort on their parcel.
So on the specific, I would say roughly 6 acres,
Right.
they're not specifically going to necessarily they're not saying, yes, we're willing to pay for that 6 acres. What they have, I would say loosely acknowledged up to the CFO level of the group is that if we start that project, it's high probability they will continue on the rest of their parcel from that footage up to the river or north towards Sherman to help eradicate some of that. And that's what we thought was exciting based off of sort of this early collaboration of, hey, let's show some goodwill because they do own a lot of land, as we all know, within the village, that if we get them excited about doing it, that's, 400 or 500 acres within the village that
Yeah.
they might appoint to get going to clean up.
And they,
We sometimes have a complicated relationship with Metro Parks.
Yes.
they've already, or they are contributing some in-kind services in terms of RFP, criteria for vendors and a vendor list. So those are pretty significant.
And a commitment to
in-kind.
educate and do on-site training with.
So are you looking at?
You're definitely right. I
Oh,
mean,
sorry.
if you looked at the single landowner that probably has the most invasives on it, it's probably all that Metro Park property. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
that needs the attention the most.
Are there any, if I can just divert for a second, any questions or comments from the audience rather than waiting for another hour? We've got a few Land Conservancy members here. Rick Bull, I know you've been interested in the topic of trees. Are there any comments from the audience? Rick Bull, B-O-L-E.
Yeah.
Rick, can you stand in front of the mic so we can all hear you? Otherwise it won't get recorded.
I'm more or less the founder of the Gates Mills Land Conservancy.
You're gonna have to come a little closer because it's
Yeah,
gonna,
Okay.
there you go. Thank you,
All
Rick.
right. So I think that with this, we need to educate the whole village, but especially the big landowners. Because if you eliminate over here, that other property will would ruin this invasive plants will spread into the next property. And I'm working we have 26 acres, and the two that are bothering me the most are the Chinese euonymus, which is called burning bush and is a very popular shrub that everyone loves. But when it gets fairly big, it has about hundreds of berries on it, and the birds eat the berries and spread it all through the woods, and it's very dangerous. And then there's a whole lot of other ones that are invasive, but I think we need to educate the whole village, because once we treat certain properties, everyone should be aware not to let anything back in.
Thank you. And we do need the education of what we're all doing here. Yes, hi, Celeste. Thank you, Rick.
I'm Celeste McClung. I'm with the Gates Mills Land Conservancy. And I just wanted to invite everyone once again to our seminar. This is the second year we're having the seminar. This year it's called Our Collective Responsibility Moving Forward. And we have some really wonderful speakers. Ed Myers, who has worked with the Western Reserve Land Conservancy He will talk about the importance of conservation easements. Pete McDonald, who is Director of Land Stewardship with Western Reserve Land Conservancy, will speak about the land and conservation easement stewardship program they have. Jared Bartley from Cuyahoga Soil and Water. He is the Deputy Director of Watersheds and Education, but he's also Director of the Healthy Urban Tree Canopy. He will be talking about growing a healthy urban tree canopy. And Craig Morton, who's from a company, he owns a company called Ecological FX, and they help industrial and manufacturing companies to increase wastewater treatment effectiveness and maintaining their environmental footprint. And he will talk about aquaponics and restoring biodiversity. So we'd just like to invite everybody. It's on this coming Saturday, the 21st. It's at 9 o'clock. We will have, some beverages and light food items for you. But I think it would be a nice educational thing. It's at the Environmental Education Center, which is the Mayfield School affiliate on County Line Road. So we just want to welcome everyone to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sandra, can I suggest that maybe you and David put together the ordinance now that we want to, ordinance or resolution? While we've got Mitch here and a few other, the tree people,
Present it now?
Can you?
Yeah. No, that's.
So I have you want to go ahead and present it, and then I have some comments afterwards, so.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead. You want to make a comment first?
Well, so my comment is, maybe before we do that, is that I think as a council that we need to decide that we want to fund this with funds either that we have from the Conservancy levy, or that we're committed to do it even if the Conservancy levy sharing switches back to the prior sharing. Now, I think even under the old sharing agreement, because I believe that when that levy comes up for renewal, it'll be an issue again as to whether it's going to be a 50-50 share or a 90-10 share, which I think was the prior one was 90-10.
I think it was 95.5.
95.5. I think even under the 95.5, there may have been enough to fund year 3 here, which would be on the other side of the levy. But I think if we do this, we have to know that we're approving this, even if the funding for the levy switches back in favor of the Conservancy to some other amount. I don't think we should go into this thinking that it's a set thing and it's going to forever be 50-50, because the Conservancy may need the money, and it's a good thing to have that money go to the Conservancy. So I think when we evaluate our desire to fund this, we should keep in mind that those Conservancy funds that we're now receiving as the village the sharing agreement may change, and we may have less funds available with more funds going to the Conservancy. So
Only if the village agrees.
well, that's
Right.
but there could be, I mean, I foresee that as being an issue when the levy comes up
No question.
again the next time.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, I think this is a good thing. There's a lot of village-owned property involved. I know during the Land Conservancy meeting, we had some discussion about having the Land Conservancy property be part of this and the village really be running it. Land Conservancy property is the Land Conservancy's property. It's just where that parcel is, the considerations of the view. If you made an impact on that parcel, many people in the village are going to see it. So,
Absolutely.
so, but that's Land Conservancy property. It's not village property. And we
Well,
need to know if we're going to fund it, that there could be a push, and it could turn out that, hey, the levy sharing agreement switches and there's less money from that to fund this. So I just want to make sure that we all know that.
Would this 180,000 come from us, or would this come from Metro Parks?
Well, this is coming from
From
us.
us.
Oh, from
Well,
us.
why don't-
So we'd have to pay that?
Right.
Okay.
Why don't I go ahead and read the resolution, and then we can have some discussion. So this is resolution number 2024-36, a resolution authorizing the village on behalf of its tree canopy committee to go out for bids for an invasive species removal pilot project at 4 sites in the village at an estimated cost of $60,000 a year for each of the next 3 years, 24, 25, 26, and declaring an emergency. So in essence, this resolution follows up on what Mitch just presented. It gives us the opportunity to prepare an RFP to select vendors, have them respond to the scope of work, do a bid analysis for the properties that have been described, the 4 properties, and come back to the council with a bid recommendation, and then at that point get your approval. So this right now allows us to go out for bid to a couple of vendors, which is why we're declaring an emergency so that we can do that and then come back to you next month. As Mitch said, ideally, if we could do this work in the late fall and through the winter, that's really the best time. So we'd like to move forward. But again, this is not necessarily authorizing the money right now, but the opportunity for us to go out and get the bids, given the scope of work and the estimated cost.
And so with that, we should, when we,
We need a second?
There was no motion.
we need a
Oh,
motion.
A motion.
I'm very much in favor of this program, but I don't think we need to declare an emergency. I mean, Mitch just told us that it hasn't even gone to the Conservancy Board yet, or the Metro Parks Board. And indeed, I talked to Nat Smith, the president of the Land Conservancy, today, and he told me it should not go on as an emergency. It should just go on first reading until such time as the board of the Conservancy and the board of the Metro Parks have had a chance to consider it. And we can think next month about declaring an emergency. I don't see any reason why we can't go out with an RFP without having, I don't see why an emergency is necessary to do an RFP.
Okay. Todd? Can we do an emergency without an RFP?
You mean an
Can we do an RFP with,
No, you have to wait 30 days. That's why I set it up as an emergency.
Right.
And it would require suspension of the rules and then go into effect as soon as it's passed to move the process along. That's what the reason for the emergency is. It's right in the resolution. If you want to wait another 30 days or another month to move it back whatever you wish to do. But council is required to authorize to go out for bid.
so,
Something that really needs to go out for bid, not just an RFP. You can form it as an RFP, but there's a lot of companies out there that probably can do this work.
Yes.
Maybe, maybe not.
We
And so
know
it
that
needs to
is.
be publicly bid, competitively.
part of the other reason for getting it out now is when we have those conversations with the Land Conservancy, the Metro Parks, and someone says, well, what's my share? We don't want to say, we don't know yet. It's nice to be able to go out and say, of the 50 acres that are being quoted here, roughly, your share is X based on an outside estimate that we have. Here's the scope of work, and it's $12,000 or $50,000. They don't know what they would be asked to contribute.
Yes, I agree. That would be my argument. We're going to have more information to discuss with boards.
So is the risk that one of the 2 boards wouldn't approve it, either the Land Conservancy or Metro Parks? And if so, is that mitigated by being able to pare down the RFP?
I would think you'd probably do it by property so that there is a quote for each.
Property, and then if it doesn't get approved, then you
Right,
would,
and you
They
can
drop
pick
out.
and choose.
you could drop out. Would that
Yeah.
solve
Absolutely.
it, Michael?
And we were anticipating like a scope of work for each property because they have different invasives and they're different size.
Point.
It also allows them to be in or not be in to a degree. This is a pilot. There's four test sites, if you will. Two of them are clearly ours. The other two are with our partners, if you will. And if they would like to join, great. If not, because they've got other priorities, that's understandable. We could pick other properties. It's a test that way too, in terms of their commitment of, certainly they're dedicating a lot of manpower and brain power and best practices, but eventually we'll need to have some financial contribution to make this work.
Well, Steve, I think the financial contribution from the Land Conservancy is from the 50% of the Conservancy levy. I mean, I would be
What's your
hesitant to think
point?
that the
Sorry.
Conservancy is gonna come up and put in any additional funds other than that 50%.
We're not expecting them to.
No, I
Okay.
mean, we've kind of always discussed this as coming, proposing that it comes out of our
Right.
village
The village will share
conservation
that levy.
fund.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Just want to be clear.
We need some specific numbers to be able to have those conversations. Otherwise, it's just, we think it's 2,000 an acre and we got 50 some acres and here's what it is.
So to be clear, the resolution, it just authorizes the committee to put it out to bids.
Exactly.
So we can get an idea for what it is.
Exactly.
And I mean, I was just doing a per acre calculation and maybe we're high, maybe we're low. We
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know. We don't
That's
even.
why the range.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So
So are you making the motion?
move to suspend.
We have to suspend the rules.
Second.
So Sandra, you made a motion to suspend the rules.
To
David
suspend.
seconded,
That-
right?
Yep.
Okay, roll call, please.
Eton,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press.
No.
Turner,
Yes,
Welsh.
Yes.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve resolution 2024-36?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Eton,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press.
Yes.
Turner,
yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
I'd
you.
say despite the votes, it's encouraging that we're getting this going. So Mitch, thank you. Lucy, Eric, Holly, Nat, David, Sandra, I hope I got all 7 on the committee. I may have missed somebody. But, you guys have made a lot of progress on a really important area. This is out of the comprehensive plan. This is one of the most important things that people want to have attention to. And so thanks for getting us going. We're only here in September and, you've had half a dozen meetings and you got some good collaboration built. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate everyone's support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, let's jump over broadband and do wastewater if we can. Scott, can I ask you to do that and then we'll go back to the broadband?
So we've had it in the second meeting of the wastewater committee, and things that we reviewed. So there's, the application for a $250,000 grant from the Ohio Public Works, Commission State Capital Improvement Program and the Local Transportation Improvement Program. So this is a application for grant money only, and this is, this would require a resolution by council, which I'll, introduce here in a second. If we were to be awarded this grant money, it would greatly reduce the cost of any wastewater treatment project that would be undertaken, especially the one we're considering at the Chagrin Valley Hunt Club. This would reduce the amount of borrowing that would have to be done through the Ohio EPA, and our committee recommended approval, or approved recommending to council that we pass the resolution authorizing the mayor to make this application. We're a little bit behind. The application was technically due last Friday, so it had to be submitted, or we would have missed the window. Second thing we talked about was the nomination request for low or no cost loan from the Ohio EPA's Water Pollution Control Fund. So that's been prepared. I believe that the mayor is reviewing it and it will be submitted tomorrow is its deadline. And that is just a form for a nomination, for us to be nominated, to be able to then apply should the project go forward. None of these bind the village to anything. And so, obviously, if the free money on the grant comes forward and the project's not going to go ahead, they're not gonna say, hey, you have to take this free money. They'll find someplace else to spend it. The other thing that we did is we were looking at considerations that should go into a fee determination, because for the users of our system right now, we bill a fee, they pay a fee. And we're looking at things like usage flow, the usage of a new facility, seeking fund for repairs, utilities, and administrative costs. We were looking at the rate. So currently, the village charges a rate of $6.56 per 100 cubic feet, or $65.60 per 1,000 cubic feet. And that rate was set by our section 933.07, which was effective 4/9/2002. The rate's never been changed. There's a rate per flow and there's a $50 minimum quarterly charge. So we looked at other local rates. We found some were higher, some were lower. Residents in the western part of the village that are on sewer, they would find that the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District rate that they're paying is $120.45 per 1,000. So we were looking at some other rates, and we also looked at the 2002 rate if an inflation adjustment was applied. So we're going to obtain some additional rates. We want to find out what goes into the NeoSord rate. In talking with Chris, I understand that there's really two components. You pay not only a usage flow rate, but you also pay a frontage rate that is on your tax duplicate. So we want to capture all this and.
That's for maintenance.
Yeah, for maintenance, right. Well, maintenance is going to be part of any fee that users would pay here. So our idea is that by the next meeting, we would recommend an amendment to 933.07 to update our rates. It hasn't been updated for 22 years, and it probably needs to be updated. We want to be able to have the information to update on that. So that's our report. With that, we have resolution 2024-37, and I think it was in everyone's packets. And this would authorize the mayor to prepare and submit an application, participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement and/or local transportation improvement programs, and execute contracts as required and declaring an emergency. The due date for this was Friday, so doesn't get much more urgent than that. So I would make a motion to suspend the rules on or resolution number 2024-37.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Sandra. Any conversation? Roll call, please.
I have a question. I know we can do this without a commitment to go further and actually accept the money. Have we heard back from the Hunt Club about their interest?
Deeds is right there.
So we did, and Deej is here if you'd like to comment. We did, and the Hunt Club has expressed an interest in going forward.
Good. Okay. Good.
And that's where we are.
They have an interest in going forward. They're familiar with the order of magnitude of the numbers that we've talked about. Obviously, the big items are, are these grants and are these loans available to us or not? And this is the first step to answer that question.
So there was a motion to suspend the rules?
In a second, Lori, did you have a question still?
Yeah,
Sorry.
one more question. So do we need their commitment to go forward? And maybe you said this, Scott, or are the funds, you can apply for them, you might get them, but you don't have to use them?
Yeah, we don't have to use them.
Okay.
I mean, quite frankly, we're not sure on this, the grant money, which is what this resolution is discussing. It may be that we don't get it in the first round or in District 1, but then we can go, there's a local fund that we could apply to try to get the grant money. So like anything else for these, it's a process. But we don't have to use it. If we're not going to do the project, they're not going to give us the money, so.
Roll call, please.
Anton,
Yes.
Groom,
Yes.
Deacon,
I think I have to abstain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Press.
I'm also abstaining for the same reason as Councilman Deacon.
Just to give a reason. We can't suspend the rules. If they have 5 votes.
Are you, are you are you?
It's also
abstaining?
appropriate when you abstain to give a reason, since you have an obligation to vote on matters that are.
The reason is we're members of the Hunt Club. We're on both sides of this transaction.
That is not a legal conflict.
It may not be, but when it comes to conflicts, you have to consider the perception as well as the reality.
I guess maybe the question is, given that it's the suspension and not the merits of the resolution, could we go ahead and vote?
Well, I think I put an emergency clause on this, did I not?
Yeah.
Excuse me, we're going after free money, right? How could there possibly be a conflict?
Say again,
Well,
David?
Going after
Not-
free
we're
money.
not
The
approving
recipient of the
contract.
free money is a private institution, not the village.
No, it's.
There's the
it's a public
conflict.
Purpose. It's for a public purpose, or we
Yeah.
would not be doing this at all.
Right.
And the recipient of the grant is the village.
Now, if you want to abstain.
It's being done on for the benefit of the Hunt Club.
The benefit of the village also.
Yes.
Or we couldn't do, we could not do it.
Right. And
The
actually,
benefit to the village is quite marginal.
The benefit to the village is financially attractive.
I don't know what the pricing is going to be. We
Environmentally
brought that
and
up at prior
financially
meetings. We
benefit.
didn't discuss it.
Well, I
Well, in
think
fact, I think the last I heard was it was going to be done at cost.
No, you asked that question. I didn't answer that way. My answer was different. My answer was
fair price.
looking for a fair price. That's
Fair
correct,
price.
which is more than cost and less than gouging.
So it might be helpful if legal counsel could restate, what does constitute legally a conflict of
If
interest.
you,
and
if you
help
were on
work
the
through this.
board of the Hunt Club, the Ohio Ethics Commission has said, if you're on the board, or you were an officer of particularly the president or the CFO, then you have a conflict. Being a member is not a conflict. I've faced this many times with various nonprofit organizations and other organizations with respect to this. So the Ohio Ethics Commission is not going to come after you for this. And this is simply to ask for grant money for a public project, and I emphasize public project.
Laurie, do you want to keep your vote or change your vote?
Well, I think I'm comfortable voting for in favor of suspending the rules.
We already did that. This is in favor.
No,
Oh, no, I
No?
think we got stuck.
suspending.
Okay, excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lori's now a yes.
Yes. Mr. Press.
I'm recusing or abstaining, whatever you want. I don't care whether our law director says I can or I can't. There's other standards.
I don't make
beside-
that decision. I'm giving you a.
There's other standards besides the Ohio State Ethics Commission, which is largely worthless. I've made 2 complaints to them, which they've done absolutely nothing about.
So you're still an abstain.
I'm abstaining, yes.
Turner,
Yes,
Welsh.
I'm going to abstain too.
Oh, boy.
what, on what,
Okay, well.
Same
on
crap.
what basis?
Don't.
Well, I'm
You
not
apply
sure
for
what
the
my
grant.
membership status is going to be there.
Oh, is that,
and,
son?
They're working
Can't
on some
apply
stuff.
for the grant.
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
Unless
Ed-
Chris can
Retirement.
tell us that we can wait another 30 days, but I doubt it.
Well, Ed is just, I asked him why he abstained, so he's coming.
Ed, you understand, all we're looking to do is to apply for the grant. We're not looking to accept the grant. We're not looking to spend any money. We're looking to have the authority to send in a piece of paper that says we would like to be considered for the grant.
Yeah, I'm
We've
gonna-
submitted an unsigned resolution. We've indicated that we would follow up with the resolution. Once it was approved and signed by council, they like to see that done as quickly as possible on the heels of the application.
So Ed, you still haven't said why you want to abstain.
abstain. Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Well, I've been a member there for 55 years and then I was going to resign and then they said, stay there. So I don't want to get in a conflict of interest.
But you're no longer a member.
Hmm?
You're no longer a member, correct?
Well, I don't know. They said they might do a special membership, so I don't know.
But if you're a member and not on the board, it's legally not a conflict.
I know, I just want to stay out of it. I don't want to be questionable.
Wow. That's a problem. I mean, as a council member, I could see voting yes or no, but to abstain.
This
It's
is
not
all very
taking
interesting, but
responsibility.
everything around this table is an emergency. And we signaled, all three of us signaled months ago that we were going to recuse on this issue. So nobody around this table should act surprised.
Well, what people indicated and what they actually vote could be two different things. So
If 30 days was an issue, you should have brought it up at the August meeting instead of the September meeting. We told you back in May that we weren't going to, we were going to
Caution you
recuse.
about discussing what was discussed in an executive session. Please, you're not, you cannot discuss what was discussed in executive session.
give me a minute.
If anybody wants to get my opinion, I've given it publicly.
We've heard it before, Todd.
I've been doing this for 40 years. I've had this same situation, I don't know how many times. I know that it's not a legal conflict of interest. I can't force anybody to vote one way or the other or not to abstain, or that's not my role. But
No, it's actually up-
as a council person elected to represent villagers, you have an obligation to consider
It's-
legislation.
it's
and
actually-
to vote if you don't have a conflict.
It's actually up to the other members of council who aren't recusing to decide whether they accept the explanation or not.
5 out of 7.
But they can't force you to vote, so.
Good.
To suspend the rules, you need 5 out of 7.
We'll wait, we'll expect the paddy wagons to pick us up tonight, later, after the meeting.
So it comes, you feel like, conflict.
Okay, I'm going to ask that we table this matter. I need a motion to table this matter and we'll pick it up at a further meeting.
I moved to table.
Thank
Second,
you. Who was second?
I was.
Thank you, Michael. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, the matter's been tabled. Next item. Broadband. Lori, please.
Thanks, Steve. So I think I reported at the last meeting that we had met with the vendors, that we asked for additional information, primarily related to, at least in one case, just making sure that they had the financial wherewithal to complete all these projects. And in addition, with respect to discounts and pricing, and by discounts and pricing, I mean the extent to which the village might or might not be asked to invest and put funds into the project. We heard back from one of the vendors. I'm still waiting, unfortunately, from the other one. I hope to have it last night. It's not here yet. So I'm afraid that until we get that, we're a little bit on hold. I do think that the potential for investment and minimizing that as much as possible on the part of the village is important. So a very good vendor. And we'll just have to wait until I get that information. Disappointed I don't have it, but it is what it is.
When are you expecting it? I'm sorry, I wasn't, I was a little sidetracked.
That's okay.
When?
When?
Yeah.
Well, it was promised last
Monday.
week, and then there were some delays, and then Monday night,
Right.
and it hasn't arrived. So I'll give it another day, and then we'll make a
Okay.
phone call and.
Yeah, I thought it was
get
imminent, so
I did talk to Reed Consulting about the delay and whether or not they thought it was an issue. They didn't think it was because they thought we'd need additional times if it comes through in the form that we hope, that it would take a little bit more time potentially until the next meeting to develop terms.
Okay, so we had a productive meeting with the two principals of the company. Lori and I, and maybe some others, went through a variety of items that would reduce the village's cost by contribution of services, time, and some other assumptions. They have a big financial grid that they were going to update, which is probably what they're doing now. So let's give it a few more days.
Can I
Okay.
ask a couple of questions.
Sure.
I mean, are we being asked to invest, or are they making it a condition of our engagement with them?
In one case, yes, it's a condition.
Well, which one?
We're not investing. We're not going to buy, we're not having any ownership.
Yeah,
No,
it,
no, we're investing, but you're getting something back.
Well,
in return.
and people, when they think invest, they think you're putting up cash and you're going to own
I
something.
understand.
This is just the cost.
So
Right.
are they insisting we do, or are we suggesting we might?
one of the vendors is, yes.
Well, how about the one CV gig?
That's the vendor that we're working on.
Are they
getting.
asking us to invest, or are we suggesting we invest?
It depends on an analysis that they do as to whether or not they'll need additional money. So that's what they're working on. So we gave them additional information to do the analysis, and we don't have that back yet.
My second question, oh, thank you for that.
Mhm.
My second question, did Hunting Valley invest with CV gig in their
No,
agreement? So they were allowed not to,
right.
or chose not to, whichever.
Well, they were able to, they had some other factors that they were able to contribute, if you will, to the project. For
Okay.
example, there's a number of different factors, but they're allowing the vendor to set up some on-site
So sort of
equipment.
kind contribution.
There's some in-kind contributions. That's the exact way to put it. Thanks, David.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Michael, did you have something to add?
I guess I'm confused. If Hunting Valley didn't have to invest and they have a lower population and a much lower density than we do, why in the world would we be required to invest when we're offering them a much higher density and a larger population?
We don't know yet.
It doesn't seem to.
We don't know.
sense,
Well, yeah, I
Unless
think
they
the
got a
jury's
sweetheart
out.
deal for being the first.
Yeah, they got a bump for being the
I
first.
thought the investment that was being discussed was more of a prepayment to buy a discounted rate for the term of the agreement, which was 20 years.
There was that as well. That was one of the, in-kind contributions, if you will, if you prepay, obviously.
Well, if we do that, then we've got to think about the risk of them selling or going bust. Our consultant says that their economic proposition is infeasible.
Is
so-
what?
Not feasible.
Oh, not feasible. Well, I thought that they did a really good job explaining to us, because they're vertically integrated, how they have reduced costs.
They actually convinced me as well, but they didn't convince Reed.
We pushed on that, and I think that Reed is okay with it. And we also have requested confident.
Will Reed give us a recommendation that we can rely on, that Ohio Gig is the best of the two vendors?
I think they did. I think we asked for that and they did.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good, because otherwise we've got a
I don't
record.
know if I have
that
it
says
in writing yet, to
their-
be
their
honest.
Proposition is
But to your
feasible.
point, yeah, we did ask for that. Thanks for reminding me.
Asked for, but not received.
No, we received it. I don't think
Okay.
I have it in writing though, so that's a good point. I will ask for that in writing if we think it's required. Okay.
We're paying them, we've retained them, we need their recommendation in writing. Okay, anything else on broadband? Let's hope we get that quickly and we could follow up quickly.
We had talked before about a possible survey to the village, but again, I can see that that would get deferred until we get more, clarification. It really might not be necessary.
Yeah, I think that we did talk about a survey and there's pluses and minuses, and it seemed like having this piece first would make the most sense.
This is not a question, it's an observation, it's sort of a question. Do we expect Spectrum to sit by and let this happen? Or are they going to come after us and try to entice us to stay with them? I'm a Spectrum customer, and I would expect if I'm given a better offer from CV Gig, let's say, why wouldn't they compete? Why wouldn't Spectrum try to maintain this market share they have?
We have been advised, David, that they will do exactly what you suggested. They'll lower their prices and try to protect their market position.
Yeah, that's a risk that we're facing, and CV Gig is facing too.
Correct. So actually, the Spectrum customers who don't switch will benefit just like the people who sign up for CVG. Everybody's going to end up with a lower price for some period of time.
Competition, good.
Competition's good.
Competition's a good thing.
And CVG is running it underground and to the houses.
Yep,
That's correct.
I think,
fiber, all the way.
is that what's going on in Hunting Valley right now?
That's what's,
Correct.
you drive up
You can see
Fairmount.
them burying the cable
Mhm.
on Fairmont just now.
Right, right. And Chagrin River Road, right?
Okay, next,
I'll just say that after the storm, I think people will be going with the buried cable proposition first.
Well, that's,
Because I know it took several weeks for AT&T.
then they're paying for insurance. It's
Well,
not just-
now that you brought that up, let me remind you that the competing partner or the competing competitor is not buried.
Right, correct.
It's not Spectrum. It's AT&T, and they're not burying. They're using their overhead lines.
Right. So it's a plus for Ohio Gig.
Well, when we fix the trees, everything will be fine.
Yeah.
Well, you're planting more though.
If we got rid of those trees, we might get a cheaper solution.
okay, let's move to the Safety Committee. We had a Safety Committee meeting 2 weeks ago. It was very well attended. We covered both fire, EMS, many of the topics that we've already heard from the chiefs. I won't repeat of significance. A few things, we did go through the manning proposal for the fire fighters, the update of the committee, and they supported that we continue the program, we expand it into 2025. So that when we put together our budget this fall, we'll have a larger presence than just Saturday for 24 hours. We'll see what we can afford out of that and how that all fits. But there was support for doing that. We also talked about a little bit of ways that we could communicate better during this example, the storm on August 6th. The fire and the service and the police are all on their own, I'll say, frequencies or bands. We need better communication between service and fire. One is on a low frequency band, the other is on a Mark 7 band. They rely on cell service to bridge the gap. And obviously, if you rely on cell service in a period where cell service isn't reliable, there's a danger to that. So I've asked Tom this fall, as we put this together, to take a look at a proposal that would potentially give about a half a dozen of our radios to the service department individuals. So in situations like this, service and fire are communicating without interruption. Don't know what that's going to cost or what that's going to look like, but that's something Tom's going to do. We've also talked about the need for a fire engine in 2 or 3 years. The suggestion was made that we should use the fall of this year to lay out the specs of what we need. And then be able to talk about what the cost of that would be come 2025. Perhaps even put aside, we know it's going to be $750 to $1 million, put aside a third of that each year for the next 3 years as one option, or perhaps you lease it or do something else. But we're going to work on the fire truck specs. I think this is, Tom, how old's that truck? Be 40 years old in 2027. So I think we've gotten our nickels out of that. On the police front, a couple of things. We talked about, the Chagrin Valley Dispatch a bit with the committee. The chief and I have a meeting there tomorrow to go through the rates. The rates are going to be improved for us. It's going to be based on actual calls, and our calls are less than others. So we'll actually see we should see a reduction in our dispatch calls for the next, both the calculation basis, which I would presume would then go forward for several years. That should save us, could be 15,000, 15 to 20%. Ed, I know you've often at times asked what the costs were and what some alternatives would be. So that's positive for us. We also talked about an ordinance, which is 2024-34 in your sheet. For some crazy reason, the ordinance restricts the membership of the department by level to certain numbers. It doesn't provide any flexibility for us to hire another person or two or three if times require that. I can understand the need to not have it so open-ended that you have no budget control. Of course, you always have budget control because you approve the appropriations to spend the money. But what we have here is an ordinance that limits us to 6 patrolmen and 2 sergeants, 1 detective, 1 lieutenant, 1 chief. As we talked about in the past, we have difficulty now finding full-time individuals and part-time individuals, because the part-time individuals in some cases can't work part-time elsewhere where they have a full-time job. So this becomes a little bit of an exercise here. So what you have in front of you is a proposed ordinance 2024-34. The chief can go with this in detail if he needs to, but we're asking to strike the 2 in front of sergeants and say up to 3, and to strike the word 6 and put up to 10 patrol officers. And the flexibility there again is we may need to hire full-time people. That doesn't mean we're adding 3 shifts around the clock, but we need to have more in the head count to be able to take care of the loss of part-time patrolmen, vacations, and so on. Chief, do you want to add anything to that, or is that a good summary? Thank you. We don't need to declare this an emergency. This would just be a motion. So may I have a motion to,
First reading, or do you want?
First reading. No, just first reading.
If that's on first reading, you don't have to do
Okay.
anything.
Oh, that's easy. Okay. Any questions on this before we go to the next topic? Sandra?
Great news about Chagrin Valley Dispatch. I'm glad to hear that. And just a random question now that you brought that up. Well, I saw a truck going down the street that said CVD, Chagrin Valley Dispatch. Do they have their own equipment, emergency equipment? Do you know?
Where did you see that? It's curious.
On Old Mill outside the Hunt Club. Isn't that what we saw, Chuck?
I think it said Chagrin Valley Fire Department.
Oh, Chagrin Valley Fire Department. Okay, never mind.
Just to answer your question, they do have a global command center.
Okay, okay, Chagrin Valley. Okay. Okay,
I didn't know it now.
okay. All right. So it's probably the Chagrin Valley Fire Department. Thank you.
Okay, let's go back to the agenda here. Number 11, ordinance 2429, second reading, public hearing on October 15th. This is with respect to an ordinance amending section 113107, enacting 1157.10, zoning uses of the codified ordinances of the Village of Gates Mills to prohibit adult use cannabis operators in the village. This is a second reading only.
Got the same comment I had last time. I think we ought to ban the retail, but I don't think we ought to ban the cultivation or the processing.
Okay, we'll make that comment noted in the minutes.
Is this just medical cannabis? Sorry,
No.
recreational.
This is
Does it say recreational in the,
This would be medical
In the
and
ordinance?
recreation.
so it's both?
Yes.
Should that be made clear?
Well, we made it clear 6 years ago about, I think it was 6
Okay.
years ago about medical. So
Okay, so this is the second step.
this
Okay,
is second.
so it should say recreation.
No,
It should say both.
it's adult.
Say
That's
both.
what the state calls
Okay,
it, adult.
all right, okay,
Use.
understood. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, next item 12, resolution 2024-33. It's a resolution accepting the amounts and the rates determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county fiscal officer. This is second reading, first reading, third reading?
First reading, and it needs to be passed tonight.
Okay,
The county needs it by the end of the month.
okay. May I have a resolution to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Thank you, Scott. Sandra, thank you for the second. Roll call.
Eton,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Walsh.
May I have a motion to approve the ordinance?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Lori. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Eton,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Okay, we did ordinance 2024-34, so we can jump over that. 2024-35, item number 14 on the agenda, an ordinance to amend the annual appropriation ordinance, which was 23-49, to increase certain appropriations and other expenditures of the Village of Gates Mills for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2024. We're asking for an additional
$32.
$232,000 for the capital improvement fund.
Old Mill and Mayfield.
And Steve.
Old Mill and Mayfield.
Old Mill and
Yes.
Mayfield. Yep. So. I mean, do we need to
Yes.
suspend?
So we need to suspend the rules. Can I have a motion to suspend the rules? Thank you, Scott.
Second.
Thank you, Laurie. All those in favor? Aye. Roll call. I should do roll call.
Eton,
He's in a hurry.
I don't think we can do that.
Eton,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Walsh.
They do it in Washington all the time.
Yep.
Just by acclamation.
That's how we did it in Wade Hill.
All right, so I'll move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call.
Eton,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Okay, the tree canopy we covered, right?
Actually, I do
2024-36.
One question though.
Huh?
So if the county does come through and gives us half,
Then we'll put it in the capital.
just in the
account.
capital fund? Yeah, all right. Okay.
Yeah, the way we have to spend it to be, they're on a reimbursement basis. So we've got to appropriate and spend it and then transfer tax.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, I think that's it. We covered the tree canopy, we covered the Public Works Commission request, council matters, item number 17. Any additional items from council?
Yes.
Ms. Turner?
I'll make it quick. There was in your handout, in your packet, there was a handout from the School Liaison Committee. The 2023-24 report is out there. They're including some highlights from that. The only comment I wanted to make is to clarify, because we talked about this at the last meeting. The meeting sponsored by the Improvement Society and the School Liaison Committee to talk about the levy is October 9th from 6 to 7, and it'll be in the elementary school, October 9th.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Any items from the audience? I'll have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Scott. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Laurie. Roll call.
Eton,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Thank you all for attending.